We're here at the Littleborough home of Brenda Sutcliffe, who for 50 years, along with her husband Harold, who recently sadly passed away, has farmed sheep. In 1992, Brenda, under instructions from MAF, was forced to dip sheep using an organophosphate based product. I wonder, Brenda, if you could tell me the conditions in which you were forced to dip sheep, including whether you might have been forced to wear any safety equipment, and what subsequently happened to you after you did so.
Well, there were no instructions. We were ordered by government legislation to dip sheep once a year, in the spring I think it was, but most people dipped in the autumn anyway. But in the 1980s, I can't be sure of the date now, we were ordered to double dip sheep with a 3-week interval between them. I later found out that if you'd ever been made ill by one organophosphate, you should never ever use another.
Did they force you to wear any safety equipment?
No, but just out of, there was no mention of safety equipment, but out of sheer common sense really, because you don't want to get wet through. We were using cut down ex-fireman's gear.
Right.
That didn't save us.
What happened to you as a result of dipping the sheep?
Well, about 4 weeks after, or 6 weeks perhaps, we didn't know what was wrong with us. We were constantly at the doctor's. Harold went through the whole gamut of hospital appointments, testing for one thing and another, and they couldn't find anything specific. We saw a video put out by Countryfile which explained exactly what was wrong with us. The symptoms were there. We took the video to the doctor, who fortunately read it, by which time Harold was in a terrible state, so the doctor got a psychiatrist to come, and the psychiatrist said to the doctor, "These people have been poisoned." Our doctor spent 2 or 3 days on the phone to Guy's Hospital. They sent blood samples to Guy's Hospital.
What did those samples tell you?
Well, exactly what the little book had told me. Cholinesterase levels in our system had been destroyed.
And what does that cholinesterase do?
Cholinesterase enzyme allows messages to get to and from the brain. The pyroxenase enzyme allows...
Which had also been damaged.
Mine had also been damaged, the other blood samples hadn't. That allows the blood flow to the heart. Now, later we joined the scope research at Manchester University, and my results came back showing that I had a decreased cholinesterase level, and I also had a defective gene.
You made it your business to find out about organophosphates. Was that easy?
Not at all, not a lot. Everywhere I turned, there wasn't any help. We were told it was out. In fact, one of my first ports of calls was Rochdale Environmental Health, and they said, "We're not sending anybody to a meeting from here. If these people were made ill, it's their own fault."
Right.
And they were given guidelines.
But you also went to the Health and Safety Executive, the Health Protection Agency, all sorts of agencies.
I've been all over the world looking for...
Where did you eventually acquire the information which gave you some understanding of your symptoms?
Well, a friend in America, a pen friend, and I wrote and told her what was happening to us. The same thing was happening to her son, who'd been in the first Gulf War. She immediately rang up the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, and by airmail they sent me a little book called Recognition and Management of Pesticide Poisoning. Now that was a real eye-opener.
What did they say might happen if you to people?
There were no advance warnings of what to look forward to, but for a long time we didn't have anything to look forward to anyway. We were running a little business inviting schools to visit the farm, so the winter was spent cancelling next year's visits. That went out through the window.
You discovered that you weren't, when you started writing letters to Farmers Guardian, Farmers Weekly, and raising this issue, you discovered you weren't by any means the only people who've been affected by...
No, the very first letter I wrote to Farmers Guardian was in response to one from the National Office of Animal Health, who said that the people in the southwest were scaremongers. And I was so angry, I wrote in response to that and pointed out basically what had happened to us, very, very basically. They never responded to that, but they never respond to anything. You write to the HSE, and I have written numerous letters to the HSE, and the last reply I got was, we will no longer reply to any of your letters because you are not raising any new issues.
You discovered that many shepherds and others had suffered a range of symptoms. Could you just give me a brief glimpse of what those symptoms might have been for some of them?
Well, I put my telephone number on the letter to the Farmers Guardian, and then the phone calls started coming in. People were complaining of all sorts of things. Like one lady said that her husband had died of cardiac arrest, which figures because that's one of the symptoms. There were everything, and you name it, Parkinson's, motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis.
And we're not talking here necessarily old people.
Oh no, the youngsters were going as well, and the suicide figures were astronomical.
You've made an estimate that around 200 or so people, farmers, shepherds die each year as a consequence, or were dying as a consequence?
I did estimate 200 people a year, but I've been told since that the figure has now passed 1,000 dead. Obviously they're not all from organophosphate poisoning, because the average age of farmers is very, very old. But youngsters dying unnecessarily. You've
written to many organisations. The response of politicians has been particularly disappointing.
Yeah. I've written to the World Health Organization, the Pesticide Action Network, the University of New Jersey. The University of New Jersey were very helpful. They put on their website the conditions of every chemical known to man, I think.
You produced, as a consequence of that, your own little booklet.
Yeah, I've actually produced 3, and I'm hopefully, with help, I'm going to produce 4.
And that's a collection of all of your works, which is available from yourself, yes? Plus a donation, yes?
The number 2.
Is that, yeah?
Yeah, it's called Cause and Effect. We do need a donation, because obviously research on this sort of level costs an enormous amount of money. And
it's an issue which you're going to continue to battle on with, though, yes?
How long's a piece of string?
Okay, thank you.